Most people don't fail because they ask for the wrong things. They fail because they are afraid of being seen wanting anything at all. From the outside, it looks like patience. It looks like humility. It looks like strength. But underneath, it is often fear. Fear of rejection. Fear of judgment. Fear of losing control. Fear of being exposed. So people stay quiet. They wait. They hope someone notices their effort, their struggle, their unspoken needs. And life stays exactly the same. This audiobook is not about begging. It is not about manipulation. It is not about clever words or psychological tricks. It is about something much deeper. It is about who you become when you open your mouth. Because asking is never just a sentence. It is a reflection of your self-respect, your emotional stability, your inner authority. When you ask from fear, people feel it. When you ask from lack, they sense pressure. But when you ask from clarity and calm, the world responds differently. Not because you are demanding, but because you are grounded. Most people believe confidence comes after they get what they want. In reality, confidence is what allows them to ask in the first place. This audiobook will guide you through that shift. You will learn why silence costs more than rejection, why calm energy is more persuasive than urgency, why clarity opens doors that effort alone never will, and why the strongest people are not those who never need help, but those who know how to ask without losing themselves. This is a journey inward, a quiet recalibration of how you speak, how you stand, and how you engage with the world. So, take a breath, let your shoulders relax, and listen slowly, because the moment you learn how to ask without fear, life begins answering in ways it never has before. Most people believe fear shows up when they ask for too much. In reality, fear shows up when they get close to being seen. Fear is not triggered by the request itself. It is triggered by exposure. The moment you consider asking for something meaningful, your mind does not think about the words. It imagines the moment after, the pause, the look on the other person's face, the possibility of being misunderstood, the possibility of being judged. And in that imagined moment, your nervous system reacts as if danger is real. This is why so many capable, intelligent, hard-working people remain silent. Not because they lack courage, but because their body interprets asking as a social threat. Long before logic can intervene, fear steps in to protect you. It whispers familiar warnings. Don't bother them. Don't look needy. Don't make it awkward. Don't risk rejection. So you delay. You soften the request. You hint instead of asking, or you say nothing at all. And silence becomes a habit. Over time, silence feels safer than expression. It feels controlled, predictable. But safety and growth rarely live in the same place. The truth is simple but uncomfortable. Most people are not afraid of hearing no. They are afraid of being clearly seen asking, seen wanting more, seen needing help, seen desiring something that matters. Because wanting exposes vulnerability. And vulnerability feels risky in a world that rewards composure. From an early age, many people learned that strength meant self-sufficiency. That asking was a sign of weakness. That relying on others made you smaller. So they built identities around independence. I'll handle it myself. I don't need help. I'll figure it out. At first, this feels empowering, but over time, it becomes limiting. Because independence without expression turns into isolation, and isolation quietly suffocates opportunity. Every door that has ever opened in your life began with a moment of expression, a question, a request, a conversation that risked uncertainty. No door opens for silence. Yet fear convinces you that waiting is wiser than asking, that patience will be rewarded, that someone will notice your effort without you having to speak. Sometimes they do. Most of the time, they don't. And life moves forward without you. This fear does not mean something is wrong with you. It means your nervous system is doing exactly what it was designed to do, protect you from social pain. Rejection once meant exile. Disapproval once meant danger. So your body learned to avoid those risks at all costs. But the world you live in now is different. Silence no longer protects you. It limits you. When you avoid asking, you don't avoid rejection. You avoid opportunity. And over time, this avoidance reshapes your identity. You begin to see yourself as someone who waits instead of initiates, someone who adapts instead of directs, someone who hopes instead of leads. This happens quietly, without drama. One missed conversation, one unspoken need, one moment where fear won and you told yourself it didn't matter. But it does matter. Because the cost of silence compounds. It compounds in careers where growth depends on visibility, in relationships where needs go unspoken, in lives where potential remains locked behind unasked questions. Powerful people are not fearless. They are familiar with fear. The difference is that they do not let fear make decisions for them. They recognize fear as information, not instruction. Fear says, "This matters." It does not say, "Stop," when you feel fear before asking. It means you are standing at the edge of expansion, not danger. The question is not how to eliminate fear. The question is whether you allow fear to silence you. Courage does not arrive after fear disappears. Courage is the decision to speak while fear is present. And this decision begins internally. Before you ask the world for anything, you must ask yourself one honest question. What am I afraid of being seen as needy, inadequate, demanding, unworthy? These fears are rarely about the request itself. They are about identity. You fear that asking will change how others see you. Or worse, confirm how you secretly see yourself. This is why fear feels so intense. It threatens the image you've worked hard to maintain. But here is the truth that changes everything. Your value is not reduced by expression. It is revealed by it. People who never ask are not respected more. They are noticed less. People who speak with clarity are not judged more. They are understood more. And understanding is the foundation of respect. The moment you allow yourself to ask honestly, something shifts inside you, not externally, internally. You stop negotiating with fear. You stop waiting for perfect confidence. You stop rehearsing imaginary outcomes. You act from self-respect. This is not loud. It is quiet. It is the decision to honor your needs without apology, to express desire without drama, to step forward without demanding a result. The first step in mastering the art of asking is not technique, it is permission. Permission to be seen wanting more. Permission to express what matters. Permission to take up space without shrinking. Start small. Not because your desires are small, but because courage is built through repetition. Ask for clarification instead of pretending you understand. Ask for support instead of carrying everything alone. Ask for time instead of hoping it appears. Each small ask retrains your nervous system. It teaches your body that expression is survivable. That vulnerability does not equal collapse. Over time, fear loses its authority, not because it disappears, but because you no longer obey it, and something powerful begins to emerge. A quieter confidence, a steadier presence, an inner signal that says, I can speak. This is where real influence begins, not with words, but with the courage to open your mouth when silence would be easier. This chapter is not about forcing yourself to ask. It is about understanding why you haven't. And once you see that clearly, fear no longer controls the conversation. You do. Most people believe they struggle with asking because they want too much. In reality, they struggle because they don't know what they truly want. Confusion is far more dangerous than desire. When you are unclear inside, your words become unstable outside. Your voice hesitates. Your request feels heavy. Your energy wavers. And the world responds to that uncertainty. You cannot ask powerfully if your desire is blurry. You cannot speak with authority if you are negotiating with yourself. This is why asking feels uncomfortable for so many people. It is not the fear of rejection alone. It is the fear of asking for the wrong thing. Deep down, you sense it. You worry that if you speak, you might expose confusion. You worry that if you ask, you might realize you don't fully understand your own needs. So you delay. You soften. You generalize. You say things like, I just need a little help, or I'm not sure. Maybe something like this, or whatever works for you. And while these phrases sound polite, they dilute power. Vague asking creates vague outcomes. The truth most people avoid is this: what you ask for is rarely what you actually need. People don't ask for money. They ask for security. They ask for breathing room. They ask for relief from constant pressure. People don't ask for attention. They ask to feel seen, to feel valued, to feel emotionally safe. People don't ask for time. They ask for peace, for space, for control over their life. When you mistake the surface want for the deeper need, your request misses its mark. And when your request misses its mark, you interpret the response as rejection. But often, it was simply misalignment. Clarity changes everything. Clarity is not about being certain of the outcome. It is about being honest about the desire. Before you can ask anyone else for anything, you must be willing to ask yourself a difficult question. What do I actually want beneath this request? Not what sounds reasonable, not what feels acceptable, not what you think you're allowed to want. What do you truly want? This question makes people uncomfortable because it strips away excuses. Clarity removes the stories you tell yourself to stay safe. It removes the justifications. It removes the emotional fog. And in that clarity, something becomes obvious. Many people adjust their desires downward to avoid disappointment. They convince themselves that wanting less is maturity, that expecting less is wisdom. But this is not humility. It is self-censorship. There is a difference between unrealistic expectations and suppressed truth, and most people confuse the two. When you downplay your desire, your request carries hesitation, and hesitation weakens, asking more than any external obstacle. Powerful asking begins with self-trust, trusting that your desire is valid, trusting that clarity is not selfish, trusting that naming what you want does not make you demanding. It makes you honest. Clarity does not require long explanations. In fact, the clearer you are, the fewer words you need. Confusion hides inside over-explaining. Clarity lives in simplicity. If you cannot express your request in 1 or 2 sentences, you are not ready to ask. Not because you are incapable, but because you are still negotiating with yourself. 1 sentence forces truth. It forces you to choose the real desire over the comfortable one. It forces precision. It forces courage. This is why clarity feels confronting. It removes your ability to hide behind ambiguity. Practice begins here. Think of something you want to ask for in your life right now. Something you've delayed. Something you've avoided naming. Now, ask yourself quietly, what does this actually give me if I receive it? If the answer is relief, then relief is the real need. If the answer is safety, then safety is the real need. If the answer is respect, then respect is the real need. Once you identify the need beneath the want, your request transforms. You stop asking for symbols. You start asking for substance. And something remarkable happens. Fear begins to soften. Because clarity brings stability, and stability brings confidence. When you know what you want, your body relaxes. Your breath slows. Your voice steadies. Not because the outcome is guaranteed, but because you are no longer divided inside. The world responds differently to unified people when your words, intention, and energy align. People feel it. They trust it. They understand it. They know how to respond. Confusion puts pressure on others. Clarity gives them direction. This is why clear asking feels respectful rather than demanding. It removes guessing. It removes emotional labor. It removes unnecessary tension. People appreciate clarity more than politeness. Politeness can hide fear. Clarity reveals confidence. Another important distinction must be made here. Clarity does not mean rigidity. You can be clear about what you want while remaining flexible about how it arrives. You can be precise without being controlling. Clarity sets the destination. Flexibility allows the path to adapt. This balance is emotional maturity. Many people fear clarity because they think it traps them. In truth, confusion traps you far more effectively. Clarity creates movement. It turns asking from a gamble into a direction. Once you know what you are really asking for, asking stops feeling like exposure. It starts feeling like alignment. You are no longer hoping the other person understands you. You are guiding them. And guidance is leadership. This is why people with clarity progress faster. Not because they are luckier, but because they reduce friction everywhere they go. They do not wait for others to guess. They communicate truth directly and calmly. Clarity also protects you. When your desire is clear, rejection hurts less, because you know what you're aiming for. And you know that one response does not define the journey. Confused people take rejection personally. Clear people take it informationally. They refine. They adjust. They ask again. Better. This is the foundation of powerful asking. Not confidence built on outcomes, but confidence built on understanding. Understanding yourself. Understanding your needs. Understanding the difference between what you want and what you need. Asking becomes easier not because the world becomes kinder, but because you become clearer. And clarity removes internal resistance. In the next chapter, we will address the forces that still block expression even when clarity exists. Pride, shame, and ego. Because knowing what you want is only the beginning. Letting yourself ask for it is where real transformation begins. Even when you know what you want, asking can still feel impossible. Not because you lack clarity, but because something inside you resists being seen. That resistance does not come from fear alone. It comes from three quiet forces that shape human behavior more than most people realize: pride, shame, and ego. They rarely announce themselves. They don't shout. They whisper. And because they feel familiar, they often go unquestioned. Pride tells you that you should handle everything on your own. It equates independence with worth. It says, if I ask, I lose status. Shame tells you that your needs are inconvenient. It says, if I ask, I reveal too much. If I ask, I show weakness. Ego tells you that asking gives others power over you. It says, if I ask, I put myself beneath someone else. Together, these voices create a powerful internal barrier, not loud enough to notice immediately, but strong enough to keep you silent for years. Most people believe they are choosing not to ask. In reality, they are obeying these forces without realizing it. Pride often disguises itself as strength. It tells you that self-reliance is noble, that needing help is failure, that doing everything alone proves your capability. At first, this feels empowering. You feel in control. You feel self-sufficient. But over time, pride becomes heavy, because life is not meant to be carried alone. When pride runs unchecked, it turns independence into isolation, and isolation quietly erodes opportunity. Shame works differently. It lives in the body. It tightens the chest. It lowers the voice. It convinces you that wanting more is embarrassing. Shame does not say, you are wrong. It says, you are too much, too needy, too demanding, too exposed. So you minimize yourself. You soften your requests. You apologize for your needs before you even express them. You make yourself smaller so others feel more comfortable. But every time you do this, you send yourself a message. My needs are a problem. Over time, this message becomes identity. Ego is the most deceptive of the three. It does not feel weak. It feels sharp. Ego tells you that asking places you at a disadvantage, that it shifts power away from you, that it makes you dependent. So you protect your image. You stay composed. You stay guarded. You stay silent. But ego does not protect growth. It protects control. And control without connection leads nowhere. These three forces are not enemies. They were once survival strategies. Pride helped you stand on your own. Shame helped you avoid social danger. Ego helped you maintain identity. But strategies that once protected you can later limit you. Asking challenges all three at once. It challenges pride by admitting you don't have to do everything alone. It challenges shame by making your needs visible. It challenges ego by requiring vulnerability. This is why asking feels so intense. It threatens the internal structure you built to feel safe. But here is the truth most people never realize. Asking does not lower your status. It clarifies it. Strong people are not those who never need help. They are those who know when to invite it. Asking does not make you weak. It makes you honest. And honesty is the foundation of real strength. Think about the people you respect most. They are not flawless. They are not untouchable. They are not closed. They are grounded. They are clear. They are emotionally stable. They can say, "This is what I need," without collapsing. They can ask without apologizing for their existence. That is not weakness. That is self-respect. One of the most damaging myths people carry is that vulnerability equals loss of power. In reality, vulnerability without desperation is power. The problem is not exposure. The problem is attachment. When you expose a need while clinging to the outcome, you feel fragile. When you expose a need while remaining whole, you feel grounded. Pride, shame, and ego collapse when met with awareness. The moment you notice which one is speaking, it loses control. Ask yourself quietly, when I hesitate to ask, which voice shows up first? Is it pride saying, "I should handle this myself"? Is it shame saying, "My needs are inconvenient"? Is it ego saying, "I don't want to give up control"? Each voice feels different. Pride feels rigid. Shame feels heavy. Ego feels defensive. Naming the voice creates distance, and distance creates choice. Once you see the pattern, you can respond instead of react. You can say, "This is pride speaking, not truth. This is shame trying to keep me small. This is ego protecting an image, not my growth." This awareness does not eliminate discomfort, but it removes confusion. You stop believing the story that asking diminishes you. You begin to see something else. Asking is not submission. It is participation. It is how you engage with the world instead of hiding from it. Another important shift happens here. You realize that asking is not about taking. It is about aligning. You are not demanding. You are inviting. You are not exposing weakness. You are expressing clarity. You are not surrendering power. You are choosing connection over isolation. When you remove pride, you allow collaboration. When you release shame, you reclaim worth. When you soften ego, you gain flexibility. And flexibility is power. People respond to those who are comfortable being human. Not polished, not perfect. Human. When you speak without masks, others relax. When you drop defenses, others lower theirs. Authenticity creates safety, and safety opens doors. This does not mean oversharing. It does not mean emotional dumping. It means clean, honest expression. This matters to me. This is what I need. This is where I'm headed. No apology. No performance. No hiding. When pride, shame, and ego loosen their grip, your voice changes. It becomes steadier, clearer, calmer. You no longer speak to protect your image. You speak to express truth. And truth carries authority. Asking becomes lighter, not because it always works, but because it no longer threatens who you are. You are no longer negotiating your worth with every request. You know who you are, and that knowledge stabilizes you. This chapter is the turning point, because once you stop letting pride, shame, and ego dictate your silence, you reclaim your right to be heard. In the next chapter, we will move into the foundation that makes all of this visible to others. Energy. Not the mystical kind, the emotional kind, because how you ask matters less than who you are being when you ask. And calm, grounded energy is the language the world responds to most. People do not respond to your words. They respond to your state. You can say the right sentence, use the right tone, choose the right timing, and still be rejected. Not because the request was wrong, but because the energy behind it was unstable. Desperation speaks, even when you try to hide it. It leaks through your voice. It tightens your posture. It rushes your pace. It carries an invisible weight that the other person can feel immediately. Calmness, on the other hand, does not demand attention. It commands it. This chapter is not about technique. It is about presence. Because asking is not a verbal act. It is an emotional transmission. When you ask from desperation, the message underneath your words is this: I need you to say yes so I can feel okay. That message creates pressure, and pressure triggers resistance. Human beings instinctively pull away from emotional weight that is not theirs to carry. When you ask from calmness, the message is different. This matters to me, and I am stable regardless of the answer. That message creates safety, and safety opens doors. Most people misunderstand calm energy. They think it means suppressing emotion. They think it means sounding confident while feeling anxious inside. They think it means pretending not to care. That is not calmness. That is control. Real calmness is inner steadiness. It is the absence of emotional urgency. It is the ability to want something without collapsing around it. Desperation comes from lack. Calmness comes from self-trust. When you do not trust yourself to handle rejection, your nervous system panics. Your body reacts before your mind can catch up. Your breath shortens. Your shoulders tighten. Your voice speeds up. The other person feels it instantly, not consciously, emotionally. They may not know why they feel uncomfortable, they just do. Calm energy works Because it does not burden the listener. It does not ask them to regulate your emotions. It does not ask them to rescue your self-worth. It does not ask them to make a decision under pressure. It simply invites response. Think about the difference. One person asks while emotionally leaning forward, tense, eager, hoping. Another asks while standing grounded, relaxed, open. Same request, different outcome. Calm energy signals emotional maturity. It tells the other person, I am responsible for my inner state. That alone builds trust. So, how do you ask with calm energy? You begin before the words. Calmness starts in the body. Before you ask, slow down. One breath, then another. Let your shoulders drop. Unclench your jaw. Relax your hands. Your body teaches your voice how to sound. If your body is tense, your voice will betray you. If your body is grounded, your words will land cleanly. Next, remove emotional excess. You do not need to over-explain. You do not need to justify your desire. You do not need to convince. Desperation tries to earn permission. Calmness states intention. This is what I'm asking. This is why it matters. That's all. No emotional bargaining. Another key shift happens here. You stop tying your identity to the answer. When your sense of worth depends on a yes, your energy tightens. When your worth stands independently, your energy relaxes. People feel this instantly. Calm energy communicates, I respect myself enough to ask, and I respect you enough to accept your answer. That combination is powerful. It removes fear from the room. One of the most important principles in asking is this. People say yes more often when they feel free to say no. When your energy says, I will fall apart if you refuse, the other person feels trapped. When your energy says, I'll be okay either way, the other person feels free. Freedom creates honesty. Honesty creates connection. Connection increases cooperation. Calm energy also changes your timing. Desperation rushes. Calmness waits. When you are calm, you sense emotional readiness. You notice when the moment is open. You stop forcing conversations at the wrong time. You ask when the door is already unlocked. This is not passivity. This is intelligence. Another subtle shift occurs. You stop asking to fill emptiness. You start asking to support direction. Asking from lack feels like reaching. Asking from wholeness feels like alignment. Wholeness does not mean you have everything. It means you are not incomplete without the answer. This changes everything. Your voice steadies. Your pace slows. Your presence expands. People lean in instead of pulling away. They listen differently. They respond differently. Calm energy also protects you emotionally. When you ask calmly, rejection does not shock your system. It does not feel like collapse. It feels like information. You remain intact. And because you remain intact, you can ask again better, clearer, stronger. Most people try to improve their asking by improving their words. But the real upgrade happens internally. When you no longer need the outcome to validate you, your asking becomes clean. And clean asking is powerful, not loud, not dramatic. Not forceful. Steady. Grounded. Clear. Calm energy is authority without aggression. Confidence without arrogance. Strength without tension. It is the state of someone who knows they can handle reality. In the next chapter, we will build on this foundation by sharpening the structure of your asking. Because calm energy opens the door, but specificity tells the world exactly how to help you. Most people do not lose opportunities because they are unqualified. They lose them because they speak without precision. They ask in ways that feel soft, indirect, and emotionally blurred. They hint. They imply. They circle around what they want and hope the other person will fill in the gaps. But hope is not communication. And ambiguity is not confidence. When you ask vaguely, the listener has nothing solid to stand on. No anchor. No direction. No clear picture of what you want from them. And when people feel unsure, they hesitate. Hesitation is not rejection. It is confusion. Precision removes confusion. And when confusion disappears, cooperation becomes natural. Asking without precision feels like walking into a dark room and expecting someone else to find the light switch for you. Asking with precision is turning the light on yourself. This chapter is about that shift. Not a language trick, not a communication hack, but an identity shift. From hoping others understand to leading with clarity. Most people were never taught how to ask precisely. They learned to soften their requests, to make them smaller, to make them vague enough to protect themselves from rejection. So they say things like, "Can you help me when you get a chance? I just wanted to check in. Let me know what you think." These are not requests. They are emotional placeholders. The listener must now do the work. They must interpret. They must guess your intention. They must decide what help means, how much time it requires, and what outcome you want. When you hand someone confusion, do not be surprised when you receive delay. Precision respects the other person's mind. It says, "I know what I need. I know why it matters. I know what action I am asking from you." That confidence is felt immediately. Precision also stabilizes your energy. When you are unclear internally, your body tightens. Your voice hesitates. Your words multiply unnecessarily. Over-explaining is often a symptom of uncertainty. Clarity shortens language. Precise asking sounds simple, calm, and grounded. "I need feedback on this section by tomorrow afternoon. Can you review this and tell me if it makes sense? I would like 30 minutes this week to discuss next steps." No drama. No apology. No performance. Just direction. Precision does not make you demanding. It makes you legible. Another core aspect of precision is defining the finish line. Most frustration in communication comes from mismatched expectations. You thought they understood. They thought you meant something else. Precision eliminates that friction. Before you ask, you must know, what does success look like? What action completes this request? If you cannot describe the finish line in one clear sentence, you are not ready to ask yet. Precision forces honesty. It reveals whether you actually know what you want or whether you are outsourcing that clarity to someone else. That is where the identity shift happens. When you ask vaguely, you are unconsciously saying, I am not fully grounded in my own desire. When you ask precisely, you are saying, I take responsibility for my direction. That responsibility feels powerful. Precision also includes time awareness. When time is unclear, urgency becomes emotional instead of structural. The listener does not know if your request is immediate, flexible, or optional, so they delay. Precision names time calmly. By the end of the day, before the meeting tomorrow, sometime this week, no rush. But before Friday, even flexibility can be precise. Specificity removes pressure because it removes guessing. Another common mistake that weakens asking is emotional cushioning. I'm sorry to bother you. I hate to ask. It's probably not important. These phrases sabotage clarity. They tell the listener that even you are unsure whether your request deserves space. Precision does not apologize for existing. It respects itself. You are not asking for permission to have needs. You are communicating direction. That is leadership. Precision is leadership because it reduces chaos. It gives people something solid to respond to. People do not resist clarity. They relax into it. Because clarity makes decisions easier. Precision also protects relationships. Unspoken expectations are the birthplace of resentment. When you expect people to just know, you set them up to fail. Precision removes that burden. It allows people to succeed with you. And when people succeed with you, trust deepens. This chapter asks you to stop hoping others understand and start guiding them clearly. Not controlling, not forcing, guiding. That shift alone changes how people experience you. Your voice steadies. Your presence sharpens. Your communication becomes lighter and more effective. You stop fishing. You start directing. Ask yourself honestly, do I stay vague because I fear being too direct? Do I soften my requests to protect myself from rejection? Do I hope people will read between the lines so I do not have to stand fully behind what I want? Precision requires courage. Because precision makes your desire visible. But visibility is not weakness. It is self-respect. When you speak precisely, you are no longer asking people to guess your needs. You are inviting them into clarity, and clarity builds trust. In the next chapter, we move even deeper, because clarity alone is not enough. We will explore why value opens doors that pressure closes, and how asking as a partner, not an extractor, transforms the way people respond to you. Most people believe others say yes because of logic, because of reasons, because of benefits. In reality, people say yes because of how a request feels. Pressure closes doors long before logic ever has a chance to speak. You can ask for something reasonable and still receive resistance. Not because the request is wrong, but because the energy behind it feels extractive. Pressure says, I need something from you. Value says, I am inviting you into something meaningful. That difference is everything. Pressure creates tension. Value creates openness. Pressure makes people defensive. Value makes people curious. Pressure narrows choice. Value expands it. Most failed requests fail not because they are unfair, but because they are framed as extraction. Extraction energy feels like this. Take my time. Give me attention. Solve my problem. Carry my urgency, even when unspoken. People sense it. Human beings are extremely sensitive to emotional contracts. When a request feels like it costs them something without meaning, they resist. When it feels purposeful, respectful, and aligned, they lean in. This chapter is about that shift. From taking to inviting. Taking energy is unconscious. Most people do not realize they are doing it. They rush. They ask from anxiety. They speak as if the other person owes them an answer. Their tone tightens. Their body leans forward. Their words carry urgency. Pressure does not always sound aggressive. Often, it sounds polite. But politeness with emotional urgency is still pressure. Value-driven asking feels different. It feels calm. It feels spacious. It respects the other person's autonomy. Value says, "This matters, and I trust your choice." Pressure says, "This matters, and I need your answer to feel okay." People do not respond to neediness, even subtle neediness. They respond to grounded presence. Communicating value does not mean persuading. It does not mean selling. It does not mean convincing. It means context. When someone understands why their involvement matters, the request stops feeling random. Value answers 3 quiet questions every listener has. Why me? Why this? Why now? When these questions are unanswered, resistance rises. When they are answered calmly, cooperation becomes natural. Notice how different these 2 requests feel. "Can you look at this for me?" versus "your perspective would strengthen this." "Could you take a look?" Same task. Completely different emotional experience. The second request communicates value without flattery. It does not inflate. It acknowledges contribution. People want to feel useful, not used. Value-driven asking also protects dignity, both yours and theirs. You are not lowering yourself. You are not demanding from them. You are meeting in the middle. Another key aspect of value is choice. Pressure removes choice. It traps the listener emotionally. Value preserves choice. When someone feels free to say no, they feel safer saying yes. This is one of the great paradoxes of influence. The less you cling, the more open people become. Phrases that protect autonomy sound like, "If this works for you," "When you have space," "Let me know if this aligns." These are not weak phrases. They signal emotional intelligence. They say, "I respect your boundaries." Respect builds trust faster than urgency ever will. Value-driven asking also requires emotional regulation. If you ask while anxious, the value gets buried under pressure. Calm is what allows value to be felt. Your nervous system sets the tone before your words do. This is why slowing down matters. A steady voice communicates self-sufficiency. It tells the listener, "I am stable whether you say yes or no." That stability is magnetic. Pressure tries to pull. Value invites. Invitation feels lighter because it does not demand outcome. It opens a door and lets the other person walk through it voluntarily. Value also means relevance. When you ask, "Are you clear why this matters to them?" Not just to you. This does not mean manipulation. It means awareness. Asking without relevance feels self-centered. Asking with relevance feels collaborative. This is where asking becomes leadership. Leaders do not extract effort. They align purpose. When people see how their involvement contributes to something meaningful, they engage willingly. Even small context changes everything. This helps us move forward. This keeps things aligned. This saves time later. Simple, honest, grounded, over-explaining. On the other hand, kills value. Long emotional justifications create pressure. They sound like bargaining. Value is concise. It trusts that meaning does not need to be defended. Another identity shift happens here. From "I need something from you" to "I am offering you clarity and choice." That shift changes how you are perceived. People feel safer around you. They do not brace themselves when you speak. They do not feel trapped by your needs. They feel respected. And respect is influence. Ask yourself, do my requests feel like invitations or obligations? Do I protect the other person's autonomy? Do I communicate why something matters without emotional weight? Value-driven asking does not guarantee yes, but it guarantees integrity. And integrity compounds. People remember how you made them feel. They remember whether you respected their space. They remember whether your presence felt grounded or heavy. Those memories shape future responses. Pressure might get a short-term yes. Value builds long-term trust. This chapter teaches you to stop pulling and start opening. To stop extracting and start inviting. When you ask from value, you stand taller. Your voice slows. Your presence steadies. You no longer need to push. And in the next chapter, we refine this even further. Because even value, spoken at the wrong moment, can fail. Most people believe asking is about courage, about confidence, about saying the right words. Very few understand that asking is also about timing. You can ask with clarity. You can ask with respect. You can ask with value, and still receive resistance. Not because your request was wrong, but because the moment was. Timing is the invisible force that determines whether a request lands softly or collides with a wall. This chapter is about that awareness. Because emotional intelligence is not only knowing what to say, it is knowing when to speak. Urgency feels powerful, but it often works against you. Urgency narrows perception. It speeds up your body. It compresses your thinking. When you ask from urgency, you are asking from your internal pressure, not from shared readiness. People feel that immediately. Urgent energy says, "I need this now." Strategic energy asks, "Is this the right moment?" That difference changes everything. Timing is respect in motion. It tells the other person, "I see your state. I am aware of your capacity. I am not forcing my needs into your emotional space." Most people ignore timing because they are trapped in their own anxiety. They feel the need. They feel the pressure. And they speak before sensing the room. This is not confidence. It is emotional blindness. Emotional intelligence begins with reading bandwidths. Every person has a limited emotional and cognitive capacity in any given moment. When that capacity is full, even a small request feels heavy. When that capacity is open, even a large request feels manageable. Nothing about the request changes. only the timing does. Think about moments when someone asked you for something while you were stressed, rushed, or overwhelmed. Even reasonable requests felt irritating. Now think about the same request delivered when you were calm, relaxed, or transitioning between tasks. The difference is night and day. Timing is not luck. It is observation. You observe body language. You observe tone. You observe pace. Short answers, tense posture, fast movements, distracted eyes. These are signs the emotional door is closed. Strategic asking does not knock harder. It waits. Waiting is not weakness. Waiting is leverage. Urgent asking tries to push through resistance. Strategic asking waits for openness. One of the biggest mistakes people make is interrupting emotional flow. They ask in the middle of stress, in the middle of conflict, in the middle of distraction. They confuse access with availability. Just because someone is physically present does not mean they are emotionally available. Timing respects that difference. Strategic askers look for transition moments. Moments when energy shifts. After a meeting ends. Between tasks. During a pause in conversation. When someone exhales instead of rushes. These moments are powerful because the nervous system is resetting. Asking during transition feels lighter. Another sign of good timing is permission. Not formal permission. Emotional permission. Simple phrases, open space, without pressure. Is this a good moment? When you have a minute, I'd like to ask something. Let me know when this works. These phrases do not weaken your request. They strengthen it. They signal respect for autonomy. And autonomy makes people feel safe. People say yes more often when they feel free to say no. Urgency removes that freedom. Strategy preserves it. Timing also applies to importance. The more important the request, the more important the timing. Asking for something that affects your future requires emotional stability in the room. If emotions are volatile, the answer will be unstable. You do not plant seeds during a storm. You wait for calm ground. Strategic asking understands emotional weather. Some moments are simply wrong. Not because the person does not care. Not because the relationship is weak. But because the emotional climate cannot support the ask. Recognizing this saves relationships. Urgent asking sacrifices long-term trust for short-term relief. Strategic asking protects trust, and trust compounds. Another identity shift happens here. From I need to ask now or I lose my chance, to I trust the right moment will increase my chances. That trust changes your body language. Your breath slows. Your voice steadies. Your presence relaxes. People feel less pressure around you. And pressure is the silent killer of yes. Timing also means knowing when not to ask. Silence can be strategic. Restraint can be powerful. Choosing not to speak when the moment is wrong demonstrates emotional maturity. It tells the other person you are not impulsive. That restraint builds credibility. People trust those who do not rush. They trust those who can wait. Urgency often comes from fear. Fear of missing out. Fear of losing control. Fear of silence. Strategic timing comes from confidence. Confidence that your value does not disappear if you wait. Confidence that forcing the moment is unnecessary. This chapter invites you to slow down, to observe more than you speak, to feel the room before you move into it. Ask yourself, am I asking because the moment is open, or because I feel anxious? Am I responding to readiness, or reacting to urgency? Am I respecting emotional bandwidth, or ignoring it? These questions change how you interact with the world. Timing turns asking into connection instead of collision. It allows your clarity and value to land without resistance. And in the next chapter, we reach an even higher level. Because once timing is mastered, one final attachment remains: the attachment to outcome. Most people believe confidence comes from getting a yes. In reality, confidence is revealed in how you stand when the answer is uncertain. The moment your emotional balance depends on the outcome, your power leaks. You may not notice it in your words, but it shows in your tone, your pacing, your body. People feel attachment before they hear language. Attachment sounds like need. Need sounds like pressure. Pressure closes doors. Detachment does the opposite. Detachment is not indifference. It is not apathy. It is not pretending you do not care. Detachment is caring without collapsing. It is wanting something without handing over your stability. This chapter represents a major internal upgrade, from needing the answer to being okay either way. That shift alone transforms how people experience you. When you are attached to an outcome, your nervous system tightens, your voice speeds up, your explanations grow longer. You are unconsciously trying to control the moment. People sense that. And when people sense control, they resist. Detachment relaxes the interaction. It says, I know what I want, and I trust myself regardless of the response. That confidence is quiet, but unmistakable. Think about the difference between these two energies. I really hope you say yes, versus I wanted to ask, and I respect your answer. Same request. Completely different presence. The first hands power away. The second keeps it grounded. Detachment protects dignity, both yours and theirs. When someone feels that your emotional state does not depend on them, they relax. They feel safe being honest. They do not feel responsible for your stability. This safety is what opens real conversation. Attachment creates emotional weight. The other person feels they must manage your feelings. They soften. They avoid. They delay. Detachment removes that burden. It invites clarity instead of obligation. Another truth most people avoid: if a no destroys you, you were never asking. You were seeking validation. True asking is self-expression, not self-erasure. A grounded person can hear yes with gratitude and no with composure. That composure builds respect. People trust those who can handle truth. Detachment also simplifies language. When you do not cling to outcome, you stop over-explaining. You say less. And what you say lands deeper. Silence becomes comfortable. Pauses become natural. Your presence carries more weight because it is not rushed. This is why detachment feels confident. It is the absence of internal scrambling. Detachment also means releasing control over how the answer comes. You do not chase reassurance. You do not push for immediate closure. You allow the moment to breathe. This patience signals maturity. People do not fear disappointing someone who is grounded. They fear disappointing someone who will collapse. Detachment says, "I will be okay." That statement is power. Another layer of detachment is identity. You are not your request. You are not the response. You remain intact either way. This prevents emotional whiplash. You do not rise with yes. You do not fall with no. You stay centered. That center becomes your anchor. Ask yourself honestly, do I need the answer to feel calm? Do I tie my worth to the response? Do I chase certainty to avoid discomfort? Awareness is the beginning of detachment. Detachment is trained, not forced. You do not pretend to be okay. You practice being okay. One way to train this is internal permission. Before asking, say to yourself, "I want this, but I do not need this to be okay." That sentence alone changes your energy. Your shoulders drop. Your breath deepens. The request becomes cleaner. Another way detachment shows is how you end the ask. Instead of hovering, you release. Let me know what feels right. I appreciate you considering it. Then you stop talking. You do not fill the silence. Silence is not danger when you are detached. Silence is space, and space is powerful. Detachment also strengthens future interactions. When someone sees that you respect their answer, they feel respected. They remember that. And next time, they are more open. Detachment builds long-term influence. It does not chase immediate results. This is why detachment is the highest form of confidence. It does not need performance. It does not need reassurance. It does not need outcome to validate presence. It stands complete. In the next chapter, we address the moment many people fear the most. The moment when the answer is no. Not as failure, not as rejection, but as a test of identity. For most people, the word no feels heavier than failure. It feels personal. It feels final. It feels like judgment. But this feeling does not come from the answer itself. It comes from the story attached to it. Rejection does not wound you. Your interpretation does. This chapter is not about avoiding no. It is about meeting it without losing yourself. Because the way you respond to no reveals something deeper than confidence. It reveals identity. Most people experience rejection as collapse. Their chest tightens. Their thoughts race. Their sense of self wavers. They do not just hear a boundary. They hear a verdict. I am not good enough. I should not have asked. I exposed myself. But none of these thoughts are facts. They are emotional reflexes learned early in life. Rejection becomes dangerous only when your identity is fragile. When your sense of self is built on approval, no feels like erasure. This is the shift this chapter trains. From collapse to calm redirection. A grounded identity hears no differently. Not as an insult. Not as humiliation. But as information. Information about timing. Capacity. Alignment. Emotionally mature people do not take no personally because they do not place their worth inside the answer. They understand something most people miss. No is rarely about you. It is about bandwidth, context, priorities, limits. Sometimes it is simply about now. When you collapse at rejection, you turn a neutral moment into a personal crisis. Your voice changes, your body closes, your energy tightens. People feel that, and when people feel emotional instability, they retreat further. Collapse makes rejection heavier than it needs to be. Calm redirection does the opposite. It keeps the interaction clean. It sounds like this: I understand. Thank you for letting me know. I appreciate your honesty. No defense. No justification. No emotional withdrawal. That response alone elevates you instantly. Why? Because it signals self-possession. It tells the other person, I can handle reality. People respect those who can handle truth without drama. Calm redirection also protects the relationship. When someone says no, they are setting a boundary. If you react poorly, they associate you with discomfort. If you react calmly, they associate you with safety. Safety builds trust, and trust opens future doors. This is the paradox. Handling no well increases your chances of yes later. Not because you manipulate, but because you demonstrate emotional maturity. Another important truth: a no is often a redirection, not a dead end. It points you away from misalignment, toward clarity, toward refinement. When you collapse, you stop moving. When you redirect, you continue. Redirection means asking better questions internally. Was the timing right? Was the request clear? Was this the right person? Was this aligned? These questions are not self-blame. They are self-leadership. Collapse says, I should disappear. Redirection says, I should adjust. That adjustment is growth. Another layer of this chapter is learning to separate self from request. You are not your ask. Your request is an expression, not your identity. When a request is declined, nothing about your value changes. But when you fuse identity with outcome, rejection feels catastrophic. Detachment, trained in the previous chapter, becomes essential here. Detachment allows you to hear no without spiraling. It keeps your nervous system steady. And a steady nervous system keeps your dignity intact. Dignity is influence. When someone sees you remain calm after rejection, something shifts. They reassess you. They think, this person is grounded. This person is safe. This person is strong. Strength is not arguing. Strength is not persuasion. Strength is composure. Another mistake people make is trying to recover immediately. They explain. They justify. They negotiate. This turns no into pressure. Pressure erodes respect. Calm redirection accepts the boundary and moves forward. Sometimes forward means later. Sometimes elsewhere. Sometimes differently. But always forward. Calm redirection also includes internal self-talk. What you say to yourself after rejection matters more than what you say out loud. If your inner voice attacks you, the wound deepens. If your inner voice stabilizes you, the moment passes cleanly. Say to yourself, this is feedback, not failure. This moment does not define me. I am still whole. These are not affirmations. They are grounding statements. They bring you back to center. And center is where power lives. Another identity shift happens here. From I must avoid rejection 2. I can handle rejection. That confidence changes how you ask next time. Your voice becomes steadier. Your presence relaxes. People feel less pressure around you. They become more open. This is why some people seem to move effortlessly through closed doors. They do not cling to them. They redirect. And redirection requires humility without collapse. It is saying, I respect your boundary and I respect myself. That balance is rare, and rarity attracts. Think about people you admire. They do not beg. They do not withdraw. They acknowledge reality and continue. That is calm redirection. This chapter teaches you that rejection is not a verdict on worth. It is a mirror for identity. It reveals whether your sense of self is stable or borrowed. Borrowed identity collapses under no. Owned identity adapts. And adaptation is intelligence. In the final chapter, we integrate everything. Because asking is not about techniques. It is about becoming someone people feel good saying yes to. At the highest level, asking is no longer about technique. It is not about wording. It is not about strategy. It is not about timing alone. It is about who you are when you enter the room. People do not say yes because your request is perfect. They say yes because you feel safe, grounded, and trustworthy. This is the final shift. From learning how to ask to becoming someone people want to say yes to, influence does not come from pressure. It comes from presence. Presence is the silent language that speaks before words ever do. When someone is centered, regulated, and clear, people relax around them. They listen more closely. They respond more openly. This is not charisma. It is emotional stability. Most people try to influence from the outside. They polish language. They rehearse lines. They adjust tone. But real influence is built internally. It comes from a nervous system that is not chasing approval, from an identity that does not collapse under uncertainty, from a presence that does not demand anything to remain whole. Throughout this audiobook, you have trained the foundations of that presence. You learned to face fear without shrinking, to clarify your real needs instead of hiding them, to release pride, shame, and ego, to ask with calm energy, to speak with precision, to communicate value, to respect timing, to detach from outcome, to handle rejection with grace. These are not communication skills. They are identity traits. And identity is what people respond to most. When someone enters a conversation without emotional hunger, the room feels lighter. When someone speaks without urgency, people feel respected. When someone asks clearly and calmly, people feel guided instead of pressured. That feeling is what creates yes. Yes is rarely about agreement. It is about comfort. People say yes when their nervous system feels safe. They say yes when they do not feel manipulated. They say yes when they do not feel responsible for your emotional state. They say yes when you are already okay. This chapter invites you to stop chasing responses and start embodying stability. Because stability is persuasive. A grounded person does not rush. They do not oversell. They do not justify their existence. They speak, then allow space. They trust silence. They trust themselves. This trust is contagious. Another key trait of the person people say yes to is consistency, not intensity, not charm. Consistency. When your tone is stable, your reactions predictable, and your behavior aligned, people trust you. They do not brace themselves. They do not prepare for emotional swings. They feel ease. Ease is influence. People help those who feel easy to be around. Another trait is respect for boundaries. You no longer push. You no longer chase. You no longer interpret boundaries as rejection. You see them as information. That respect makes people more open with you. They speak honestly. They engage willingly. You become someone people want to cooperate with, not defend against. The person people say yes to also understands something subtle. They do not ask to take. They ask to collaborate. They invite others into purpose, not obligation. They make people feel useful, not used, seen, not consumed. This is leadership energy. Leadership is not authority. It is regulation. People follow those who are regulated because regulation feels safe. The final shift is this: you stop asking to fill a gap inside yourself. You ask from wholeness. When you are whole, your request becomes clean. No emotional residue. No hidden agenda. No desperation. Just clarity. And clarity attracts cooperation. Ask yourself now, how does it feel to imagine asking without fear, without overthinking, without rehearsing 100 outcomes? That calm you feel is not imaginary. It is who you are becoming. This version of you does not need to be louder. They do not need to be sharper. They simply need to remain grounded. From this place, asking becomes natural. It is no longer an event. It is a movement, a steady extension of self-respect. You speak because something matters, not because you need approval. You listen because connection matters, not because you fear rejection. You remain present whether the answer is yes or no. And that presence is what changes everything. The world does not rearrange itself for the loudest voice. It rearranges itself around the most grounded one. Become that person, not through force, not through performance. Through alignment, this audiobook ends here. But the practice begins now. In the quiet moments when you choose clarity over silence, calm over urgency, presence over pressure. Each ask you make from this place strengthens your identity. Each interaction reinforces your stability. And over time, something subtle happens. People pause when you speak. They listen when you ask. They respond with openness, not because you demanded, but because you became someone worth responding to. This is the art of asking. And this is the art of becoming. As this audiobook comes to a close, nothing new needs to be added to you. Nothing needs to be fixed. Nothing needs to be proven. You have not been learning how to ask. You have been remembering how to stand. Because asking was never the problem. Fear was. Fear of being seen. Fear of being misunderstood. Fear of hearing no and losing yourself in the process. But now you understand something deeper. Your voice is not a burden. Your needs are not an inconvenience. Your clarity is not aggression. They are expressions of self-respect. Throughout this journey, you have learned to slow down where you once rushed, to clarify where you once hid, to stay grounded where you once collapsed. You learn that asking is not about forcing outcomes. It is about alignment. Alignment between your inner state and your words. Alignment between your presence and your intention. Alignment between who you are and how you show up. When those align, asking becomes simple. Not easy, but simple. You no longer ask to be approved. You ask to be honest. You no longer ask to fill emptiness. You ask from wholeness. You no longer ask to control the answer. You ask while remaining steady either way. And that steadiness is what changes everything. Because the world does not respond to need. It responds to clarity. It does not respond to urgency. It responds to calm. It does not open to pressure. It opens to presence. From this point forward, you do not need to rehearse your words endlessly. You do not need to wait until fear disappears. Fear may still arise, but now, fear no longer leads. You do. In the moments that matter, when your heart tightens and your old patterns whisper silence. Remember this: you are allowed to speak. You are allowed to ask. You are allowed to be clear. Asking does not make you smaller. It reveals your strength. And every time you ask from this grounded place, you reinforce the identity you are building. An identity that does not beg. An identity that does not retreat. An identity that does not collapse under uncertainty. An identity that stands calmly, speaks clearly, and moves forward regardless of outcome. That is quiet confidence. That is emotional authority. That is real influence. If this audiobook resonated with you, let it settle. Do not rush to apply everything at once. Change does not require force. It requires consistency. Start small. Ask clearly once today. Ask calmly once this week. Notice how your body responds when you no longer apologize for existing. Notice how people respond when you stop placing emotional weight on their answers. This is not a performance. This is a practice. If you found value here, support the channel by liking this audiobook and subscribing to Sleep Success Audiobook. Not because you must, but because this space is built for people who grow quietly, think deeply, and choose alignment over noise. More audiobooks like this are waiting for you, designed to calm the mind, strengthen identity, and help you evolve from the inside out. For now, let your breath slow, let your body rest, and carry this truth with you. You do not get what you deserve. You get what you ask for clearly, calmly, and without fear. Good night. And when the moment comes, ask,